Welcome to A History Of, where today we're going to be talking about how a small Japanese playing card company became the highest grossing video games company in the world. This is A History Of Nintendo.
Nintendo was originally founded as a playing card company in 1889, which produced particular cards called Hanafuda. This continued up until 1963, after the grandson of the company's founder, Hiroshi Yamashita, visited the US and saw that the world's biggest playing card company only had a small office. Nintendo then decided to try and expand its business by setting up new ventures. These included a taxi company, love hotels, and even a TV network. But all of these ventures failed up until 1973, when Nintendo started producing a series of light gun games for the emerging arcade market, using the same technology they had developed in one of their toy market ventures. This marked the beginning of Nintendo's era of video games. The first in this series of plug-and-play type consoles was called the Color TV Game 6, which was released in 1977, and was essentially just 6 different variations of Pong. In the 3-year lifespan of this series, Nintendo released a total of 5 different consoles and sold a total of around 3 million units. During the time of the Color TV, Nintendo were still producing arcade machines, but had only a small success up until 1981, when the world saw the release of Donkey Kong. Not only did this majorly increase their profits, but they had also created their mascot, and what would eventually become their main series of games. It was in Donkey Kong that we first saw the appearance of Mario.
Game Watch, Game Watch, Game Watch, Game Watch.
The Game & Watch was the first handheld system Nintendo produced, but was designed as a watch with a miniature game included for killing time. It was first released in 1980, with the first system produced containing a game called Bull, and the series ran until 1991, in which time producing games including Donkey Kong, Mario, and The Legend of Zelda. Originally called the Family Computer or Famicom in Japan, the redesigned and renamed Nintendo Entertainment System was released in 1985 and was the first Nintendo home console to not be restricted to playing predetermined inbuilt games. The system was redesigned and rebranded for release outside of Japan. Due to a drop in the video game market and a gain in the home computer market, the new design was meant to make the system look less than just a video games console and more of a computer, so that it would fit amongst other home entertainment systems. In 1989, Nintendo released their next big thing in handheld gaming, the Nintendo Game Boy. Designed and created by the same team that brought you the Game & Watch series, the Game Boy took features from the NES and put them into a handheld format. The Game Boy ended up being a major global success and would keep its name throughout redesigns and upgrades for 16 years, before being discontinued for Nintendo's new dual-screen handheld systems. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES, is Nintendo's second home console, and is the 16-bit successor to the widely popular Nintendo Entertainment System. It was released in 1990 in Japan, but was called the Super Famicom, so it could keep its predecessor's name. The console was relatively late to join the 16-bit era, but still it became the best-selling console at the time. The SNES was also the first Nintendo console to run a 3D graphics game, after the development of a chip that went inside the game cartridge to act like a graphics accelerator. The first game to be rendered in 3D was Star Fox. The Nintendo 64 is the third internationally released home console by Nintendo and was named after its 64-bit CPU. Released in Japan in 1996, the Nintendo 64 was released 2 years later than the rest of the 5th generation consoles. With competitors such as the Sega Saturn and the Sony PlayStation already ahead in the market, the Nintendo 64 was not only late into the market, but it was also not as technically advanced as the other two competitors. The Nintendo 64 is the last of the Nintendo's home consoles to use ROM cartridges for its games. But during this generation of consoles, it was a major drawback for Nintendo, as the cartridges had a small memory capacity in a generation that needed more memory for more complex content. Although the Nintendo 64 had nowhere near the success as its predecessors, it is still known as Nintendo's best known video game system. The GameCube was the first system in CD format produced by Nintendo, and while there were loads of great games and the style was well received, the extra qualities in the other consoles at the time made the Nintendo GameCube seem simple, with the PlayStation 2 playing DVDs as well as CDs, and Xbox having a service known as Xbox Live. The new distinctive features of the DS was the first for handheld gaming, which gave game developers new ways to create intuitive designs for their games, as the bottom touchscreen could be used as a map, or inventory system, or even creating a Van Gogh masterpiece. This also meant that the top screen can also display consistent gameplay. Nintendo has used the DS design in several new versions of the original, with the latest being the 3DS, which is a way of playing 3D games without wearing them pesky 3D glasses. As of 2012, all the variations of the DS combined makes it the most successful handheld console series to date. Nintendo had decided on the name of its new console as it sounded like Wii, which they used to further emphasise that the console was for everyone. They also used the two eyes in the name, as it looked like two people standing side by side, as the console was also being marketed as something you should play socially. Nintendo had also brought in new controls to fit in with their wider demographic. The new Wiimote could either be used by itself, or in conjunction with a side accessory called the Nunchuck, which was a small device with a thumbstick and 2 extra buttons. The Wiimote could then be pointed at the screen, and various actions could be achieved with certain arm movements, depending on the type of game.
Oh, PlayStation.
The third one.
Third one, yeah.
Cool.
I got a PlayStation 3 when it first came out, so that was a long time ago.
That's a tricky question. Does the iPhone count as a console? Because I count as a console, just use games for it. It's not really a console, but on my iPhone then, before that it would have been PS2, but my mum bought that for me when it came out, Christmas, 10 years ago. So, yeah.
Oh gosh, I personally have never bought a games console myself, but my brother got a Nintendo Wii. That's the one I use. He's got an Xbox. I don't know how to work that. So I remember Nintendo Wii, but that must have been about 5 years ago, maybe? Unless an iPad counts. It's not really a console. Does it? Oh, in that case, Christmas, I got an iPad. So that was probably the last one.
I think the Wii U is interesting. I think the use of the tactile panel in conjunction with the TV is really good. I'm waiting for some Wii U actually. I think it's going to be great.
Is that the handheld, personal one? I personally wouldn't want to use it. I think it looks like something that would appeal to little kids, maybe, just because I might be wrong here, but it looks like it's quite chunky, quite big, which just makes me think of kids. But I don't know, I personally probably wouldn't get one.
Cool.
I think it was very lazy of Nintendo to just come up with something so obvious. There was just an idea for them to get something out quickly on the line to make it look like they're still developing stuff, when really they weren't. They were just rehashing an old idea with just a modern case. So
that was a history of. This episode was on Nintendo. We and our production team hope you found it enjoyable and informative. Catch us next week where we are going to be bringing you a history of knitting needles. Good night.
Will you teach me a lesson that my protection relies on you? Robotically spreading your aggression in the direction of a man.